right, go on. Go on now. Go on. Find Peter. Find Peter. Good morning. This is Bill from Curious Cars on what has to be the most miserable, muggy, shitty, steamy, horrible morning on a Florida February that I can ever remember. I mean, it feels like friggin' June. It is terrible, absolutely terrible. You know, the humidity is permeating everything. My clothes are moist, my glasses are fogged up. It's just absolute shit. And by the way, happy Valentine's Day, you know, which is another sick, depraved holiday that I absolutely refuse to celebrate. And fortunately, my lady friend agrees. As long as I buy her something, she doesn't need anything beyond that. So, but anyway, happy Valentine's to the people out there who do give a crap about it. But this horrible weather, I mean, look, I think the camera, you can even see there's a fog on the, you know, I've already wiped the lens off 3 times and it's still misting up, and I've just absolutely had it. And that, you know, next week I'm back in North Carolina, I'm back looking at places, my vigor has been renewed to get something up there. There is just no way that I am going to spend another summer in this godforsaken, miserable swampland. I've had it. I have had it up to here, and it's just not going to happen. So I will. And I have to say, though, my little plan of getting a USAID grant to study the attraction of Subarus to stern-looking women with short hair is going to fall through. So I'll have to find some other way to make a living up there. But you know, no matter what, if I have to panhandle on the side of the road, I'm going to do it. If I have to pump gas, it doesn't matter. I don't care. That's where I'm going to be for the summer, and I'm not going to suffer here. The birds are back. You know, they've been flying. I don't see any now, but they've been coming around this morning. I saw a couple swoop down. I haven't seen the dogs, thank God. Peter hasn't let them out. There was a cat earlier, but didn't look too menacing. He did send me a video, which I'll put. There's some birds. They're up in those trees. You probably can't see them, but they're there. Anyway, there were some deer and locked in a death struggle in this yard. I don't know where. I couldn't tell from the video. I think over here somewhere. And they looked pissed off and weird and angry. And, you know, if you got anywhere close to that little tete-a-tete, you were going to end up brutalized and then probably devoured. So hopefully those don't make an appearance while we're out here. I mean, keep hope alive. Chris, the worst human on earth, you know, I'm trying to get the shop closed. I'm trying to sell all the straggling cars in the back. I'm trying to get rid of everything. That's why I was in Lakeland at that auction last week, and I did manage to get rid of the Firebird. Did not sell the Lincoln, just didn't go for enough. Firebird didn't really go for enough, but yeah, I mean, it was on the edge, so I figured, what the hell. But then I ended up buying an old Mercedes, a 560 SL, and a Missile, because Well, because it was there, and I thought, what the hell, it'll make a nice display piece. But then it turned out that the missile was very, very heavy. And quite frankly, if I'd have known how heavy, I probably wouldn't have bothered buying it. You know, Cheap Al was with me, and my snowflake nephew, and Brandon the paint guy, and it took all four of us just to get the thing loaded up on the trailer. So it's safe now, it's, you know, secure, and it makes a nice conversation piece. But god damn, I had no idea that an old missile could weigh that much. But Chris, you know, just killing productivity. Look at this picture. Look at this human being who's, I mean, you want to talk about, like, look at me, look at me, look at me. I mean, that has got to be the most retarded and ridiculous outfit I have ever seen a human being wear. And, you know, far from surprising that it ends up on Chris. But he comes in, you know, I've got Robert the German, who's a thug, by the way, a big thug, and, you know, keeps the shop in a disgrace. And he's won, meaning that I just can't keep it clean anymore. It's impossible. I can't fight it. So now I'm keeping the place like a tenement, and the two of us together are just... But anyway, it's all I can do to keep everyone going, to keep Brandon painting, to keep Robert mechanicking. And then Chris comes in like some kind of ostentatious Elvis. And, you know, just everything comes to a screeching halt until we can get him out of there. And he, you know, drinks my Cokes, he goes in the fridge, you know, I'm going to have to ban him from the shop so I can actually keep up with my plan. The mission is to have everything sold and close the shop down by the end of this season and move everything up to some sort of shop in NC if I can find it. But look, anyway, I'm getting too deep into it. Let's just dive into the car. And what I've got today is a 2002 Lexus LS430. And you have to forget, look at that, I had the AC running earlier, and the amount of, you know, this is where we're at right now. This is Florida, anyway. This is the pivotal sedan from Lexus, or at least the third iteration of it. Back in 1983, Toyota chairman E.G., I can't pronounce Japanese names, so forgive me. It's E.J.I.I. I don't, you know, edgy, E.G., he's pretty edgy. We're going to go with edgy. Edgy Toyota with a D initiated what he called Project F1. And that was to create a luxury car that would surpass all the contemporary luxury vehicles in quality, performance, and customer satisfaction. Basically, Toyota decided to create a luxury car brand out of thin air and take the fight to all the historical makers who'd been doing it for, you know, 100 years. And they more or less won. I mean, that's the story in a nutshell. But to get into it, so they're going to make this thing back in the 80s. The goal was to challenge the likes of Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Cadillac, Lincoln, and there would be no budget limitation. They never said that at GM, by the way, with good reason, but Toyota, they could get away with it. Ultimately, the name Lexus was chosen, which means absolutely nothing. It was just, again, pulled out of thin air. There's some story that it's a, you know, hybrid of some Latin and Italian. It won the focus groups is basically where the name Lexus came from, which I just find revolting, but... you know, what works. But so they made it, and they needed to make a great car for it. Basically, they weren't the first. You know, Acura came out in 1986. That was Honda's high-end car, you know, to take advantage of the shallowness of the American market. Datsun followed with Infiniti, and even Mazda was going to make a company called Amati, and they, you know, really worked at it but couldn't pull it off. So they're going to, the 929 was going to be their luxury car, but you know, instead of some sort of Amati thing, it became the Mazda 929. But Toyota probably did the leap to the high end. You can look in America anyway, and probably in Europe to some extent, more so in America. The Japanese brands, even as though they were very good and they were beloved, but they were is synonymous with sort of well-made, cheap, economical cars. And, you know, the minute some guy got money, got well off, he didn't want a Toyota, Datsun, or a Nissan. Sorry, I did that wrong, Datsun. He didn't want a Toyota, a Datsun, or a Honda. What he wanted was a Mercedes or a BMW or something with panache. So, you know, Toyota realized that that name wasn't going to cut it, and that's where Lexus came from, which, again, just is a testament to how shallow our market was. The name Lexus didn't make it to Japan until 2005, you know, and in Europe and elsewhere these things were sold as Toyota products. But in America, they needed to trick everybody, so they made a Lexus. And Chairman Toyota's, and again with the D, the team took their job very seriously, because it turns out that, like, harakiri is a great motivator. You know, if you got to jump out of a building for failing, you're probably not going to fail, or at least you're going to try like hell not to. They would use no parts from existing Toyotas. They develop an all-new world-class power plant. They built dozens and dozens of prototypes for bodies and V8 engines, and like the cars it would have to compete with, it was going to be rear-wheel drive, which was a great move. No less hard work went into the cosmetics and materials and design. A pack of Japanese designers actually rented a house in Laguna Beach to study the habits of affluent American people, which quite honestly could be the plot for a really cheesy 80s comedy. But the American market was their primary target. I want to say 80 or 90% of these cars initially, the LSs, came to America. The rest went to Japan in bulk, and then a few went to the rest of the world. So America was what they wanted. But even then, while the U.S. was the target, they didn't leave any stone unturned. Teams of engineers and designers traveled worldwide, I'm sure to, like, you know, Tanzania and Saudi Arabia, to look at luxury cars all around the world and dissect everything from, you know, the material quality to the customer service processes. So they put their all into this, and quite frankly, they were clever in choosing their focus. The car was going to be very, you know, they couldn't just immediately come out and make the car more European than the Europeans. They had to find their own little niche, and what they came up with was focusing on it being quiet, for one. That was a big deal to them. They would make it very aerodynamic and thus efficient, and they'd make the engine efficient, even though it would have enough horsepower to be, you know, well up in the class. And they would give it a strong top speed, because apparently that was an area that the Germans were sort of not too concerned about. So Toyota found that opening, and they pursued it. And basically the LS430 that came out, it combined Japanese precision. You know, this is the press release. It combined Japanese precision with Western luxury sensibilities. So, you know, very well-made car that appeals to the shallow. The design was led by a guy named Ichiro Suzuki, which must have gotten pretty confusing for everyone. And the LS430, it would ultimately be lauded for its whisper quiet cabin. You know, that was, and I remember when it came out, man, it was, you know, it was a big deal. People were talking about it. It was, you know, there weren't that many at first. I remember one showed up at the Cadillac dealer I was working at, and it drew a crowd. We all came over and were sort of oohing and eyeing the car. And it caused quite a stir. You know, there was a lot of, you know, a lot of innovations in it. And again, it just threw the way these cars were made, the way luxury cars were made, on its head. It was the first car to use acoustic glass to keep it quiet inside. You know, who could forget the champagne glass ad, you know, on the hood, the stack of champagne glasses. A couple years later, they did a ball bearing ad where they rolled them around the body seams. And, you know, it was just, man, they did it absolutely brilliantly. And finally, in '89, after spending $1 billion, the car was ready to go. And when it was, it just turned everything upside down. It made the German cars seem expensive and dated. You know, Cadillac and Lincoln took a massive hit. You can imagine how the car made them look. You know, they'd just been sort of getting by on chrome bling and white wall tires for quite a few years. They hadn't done much development at all, so the Lexus just took them out of the water. And but more to the point, it really knocked Mercedes and BMW for a loop. I think Mercedes, the first year, this cut into 20% of their sales, and BMW 30%. In fact, BMW was so pissed off, they accused Toyota of dumping, like selling the car in America for less than its value. And they probably were, because you could buy the car for 35 grand then, which was like half the price of what the Euro flagships cost. They were a lot more money. It was probably the same as the Cadillacs and Lincolns, and more to the mid-size Euro cars. And man, a price like that, brand loyalty was out the window. People flocked to Lexus, the Americans, and they just started immediately building a brand. And they, did things just brilliantly. There was an early recall in 1989 that I can't remember what the hell it was. Something like a light heated up and might catch on fire or something. And the way they handled it, they would go and pick up the cars from the customer. They'd fix it. They'd drop them back off. They arranged to pick up cars when ones were sold and unserviced in weird areas. They just made an absolute show out of handling the recall and the customer service. And they turned this negative into what would become a reputation for world-class service. I mean, if Pearl Harbor had been planned and handled this well, we'd all be eating sushi at baseball games right now. I mean, they just did a fantastic job. And sales took off. They added more models, and the rest is history. Lexus, out of nowhere, became one of the top luxury brands and were responsible for significantly and permanently altering the luxury market. God knows Mercedes has never really been the same afterwards. So, look, I'm going to pause there for a minute because it's muggy. I need to wipe down and, get my crap back together. And anyway, we'll pick it up again in a sec. Bear with me. All right, so let's dive right back into it. So fast forward a few years, and you've got this car here. The XF30 is the chassis number, the internal designation from Lexus, and it's the third generation of LS. But, by the way, which stands for luxury sedan. A bit on the nose with all their nomenclature, but anyway, the third generation. Although in my mind, that first gen, the second gen sure looked and felt a lot like the first one. To me, this was kind of the first true departure from the first. And I know Lexus guys are going to argue that, and that's fine, but you can't argue that the second gen sure did look a lot like the first one at a minimum. But anyway, so you get to this one, and this is I'm babbling, but so you're talking late 90s, and Mercedes and BMW are still sort of flailing and reinventing themselves and kind of coming up with a way to fight Lexus, and they're dicking around with SUVs, as was Lexus, by the way, as was everybody. Cadillac and Lincoln found themselves sort of uniquely. The Escalade basically just was saving Cadillac, as we get into this era. They were just thrown for a complete loop, but not Lexus. They were king of the world. By 2000. The LS was the sales king of the luxury market. It was setting benchmarks for reliability and customer satisfaction. Lexus almost invented, they weren't the first, but they were nearly in for the certified pre-owned car crap, where they took a used lease return and stuck a warranty on it. And it was brilliant because it did up the trade-in and residual values of the car, which helped it with J.D. Powers. And, man, they just knocked this whole project out of the park. They really did. And by 2000, they were just absolutely winning. And this car was the result of that. And some people say that this was the pinnacle of the LS. That, this particular model was the one that, where it just all came together. And yeah, look, I'm not a Lexus guy, so I'm not going to jump in that argument with any passion, but I can tell you after driving it, it's a pretty damn nice car. And after researching it, I found there's ones out there with, 600,000 miles on them and whatnot. So apparently they got their quality control and build quality right on it. Although I have to say, I feel it has a little bit of a family truckster quality to it. It's tall, it's chunky, it's got really big headlights and kind of a wide and tall grille, 3-box styling, nothing too extreme. And, when I look at it, it doesn't really move me, and I think that's probably why a lot of people still did keep going to BMW and Mercedes is, those cars, they sort of, you looked at an S-Class, maybe not in 2000, but certainly in 1990, and it was hard to argue with the impact of that, and I don't think Lexus ever did manage to match that impact, but what they did do was just build a better all-around car, and that, worked for them. But this one is finished in, what the hell do they call it? Mystic Sea Opal Mica. There's a mouthful. Basically, it's green. I'll give you, okay, it's kind of a green-gray, but, and I like green cars, but apparently not everyone does. They make up about 1% of the current new car market are sold as green, so, take it or leave it. But I like it, and I think it looks good. They made the wheels pretty big. They made it chunky. You can see, man, I'm actually struggling to find beauty here. I really am. You've got that Lexus logo, which again was just market tested. These big lights, you got these big thick bumpers with sensors in them. You got fairly boring 7-hole alloy wheels running, 225 17s on them. You've got body color mirrors. You got a nice use of chrome. You got some chrome inlaid into the bumper. You've got it on an impact strip and cladding down the side. You've got it surrounding the side windows and trimming the door handles, and all that looks very nice and proper and helps it look kind of high end. You get in the back though, you got these sort of double stacked taillights. You don't really notice it when they're on in the day, but if you look at the night shot from this morning with the lights on, it's almost the rear view of the front of the family truckster with the stacked headlights. They're just big friggin' headlights. You got a nicely trimmed trunk pull up there with chrome and more Lexus badging and chrome, and the font was all very well thought out. But as I walk around the car, I'm just struggling to find any kind of real inspired beauty in it. I guess the beauty is going to have to be considered the engineering. Let's get inside the trunk. So in a big luxury sedan, of course, you have to have a pretty big trunk, and Lexus does not disappoint. You could probably fit a whole busload of preschoolers in here without a problem. It's enormous, and it has a nice big opening that is not hard to get packages or suitcases in and out of. It opens way down low here just over the bumper, so the threshold is quite nice and low. It also has a pass-through for your sniper rifles or skis or whatever it is that snooty Lexus people are going to drive anywhere, something long and lean. Over here you've got this little toolkit, which that's kind of crappy build quality there, isn't it? Yeah. Well, that's trim feels a little bit loose, but anyway, you've got inside there's a little toolkit, which they of course had to do, because Mercedes and BMW have them. So you got pliers. I'm sure it's all made in Japan, and even a neat little Lexus light that's still in there, and a very clever little place to put it, I have to say. You get under here, you got a full-sized spare tire on a matching alloy again. Nice copy of the Euro setup. You got your tools there and everything. It looks very nice and proper. I'm not going to argue with that. It's a very good trunk here. I won't say that's an infant containment, Matt, unless it's a very small infant. I mean, you're just not going to fit much in that thing. That maybe a set of books. But anyway, they did that by moving the gas tank and making a nice big trunk. So there you go. Look under the hood. Oh, God. you know, this has always been one of my arguments is, you know, I know Lexus, oh, here's another family truckster type thing before I get into it. You see the windshield washers here with the 3 nozzles. I feel that looks a bit chunky and needless in my mind. 2 nozzles is enough. I got by for years on 1. Anyway, you look under the hood and, you know, there it is. It's what, the 3UZ FE, and they're obviously very proud of their designations because they actually put it right on the intake cover as well as up here. So, you know, yeah, this V8 was a pretty big deal for Lexus. This is now the 3rd iteration of it. With sequential multi-port fuel injection, 4.3 liters. It had 290 horsepower, uses a variable valve timing system, so it, you know, gives you good torque in the low and good efficiency in the high. And, you know, it's a model of engineering. And the key to what Lexus did is they put all that technology into the engine, and they actually made it reliable and smooth and proper. And, of course, that's a big part of why these cars did so well. It has 320 foot-pounds of torque. These are good figures, man. These are enough to keep it in the luxury car market at the time. And, you know, they're even respectable today. You got double wishbones up front, the multi-link in the back. You got air suspension. The fancier ones had adjustable air suspension. There's brake assist. There's, you know, ventilated discs up and back with, of course, ABS. And there's brake force distribution. You know, all this electronic stuff. And again, the key to it is Lexus managed to make it reliable. BMW and Mercedes do all that stuff too, but they have this habit of making it fail, you know, and that's, you know, the ABC system in the cars of the same year for Mercedes was very cool system, but man, did you have to service that thing all the time, and it was expensive. Did not happen so much with the Lexus. You have rack and pinion steering, which feels nice and light, and you know, all in all, just a very well engineered car, but it's somehow, in my mind, a little bit devoid of a soul. Down there you can see it's got an early sensor for the cruise control, like a LiDAR based cruise control radar system, and you know, that was neat. Of course, Mercedes had the same thing, and I think it's actually in-op in this car, which, you know, so there you go, one for Mercedes. Lexus couldn't build a cruise control that lasted. I know the cruise works, but I don't think the LiDAR part of it does. Like that it has 2 old-fashioned horns in the front, like a 69 Cougar or something. That's kind of neat. But anyway, that's under the hood, and again, you know, not very inspiring to look there, but it's a damn good car. It's almost like, you know, if 80s Volvo had built a great luxury car, you know, this may be what it would be. So anyway, I'm going to pause there for a minute, get all my crap back in the trunk, then we're going to have a look inside and go for a drive. Alright, so let's have a look inside this thing. You can see it's got some twice pipes down low, but, you know, they even kind of concealed them. I mean, if I were in Lexus, I'd have really made a point of it on this car to give it a little, you know, visual beef or something. You know, that's just... yeah, anyway, have a look inside. So look, your Canadians are going to be chipper as hell back here. You got seating for 3 on this lovely, soft ecru leather, and it's, you know, I guess part of their designers' research showed that Americans love shitloads of bunch soft leather, and that's what this has. So everywhere you look, you know, even the armrests are leather wrapped, the you know, nice leather puffy inserts there on the doors. You've got neat little, they give you ashtrays in O2, which I can appreciate. 2 sides, back, great, and a lighter, by the way. So yeah, give them credit for that. Maybe the Japanese were still smoking. Looks like some kind of bird's eye maple or something. I can't remember what this wood is called, but, you know, it's real wood and it's nice. You got some map pockets back there. Good spot for, you know, little weapon of some kind. Here's a center console with cup holders, activators for the rear heated seats. Another spot for, you know, little bottle of booze or a line of Coke or, you know, whatever it is that the backseat people are going to have. And, you know, it's just all nice. You got some oh shit handles up there. There's, you know, some cheap looking interior lights. They look like they came out of the Corolla. But, you know, perforated leather. Yeah, all very proper. Have a look up front. And, you know, again, I do think that they borrowed some of the interior design from the Germans, you know, whether it's the wraparound dashboard into the door panels with the wood stuff, or, you know, the design of this and that. But it was, you know, it was very Toyota-y, and they did manage to make their economy car look feel a bit more high-end and proper. And one of the big deals of that is that backlit instrument display. I remember that, and when it came out in '89, when that car showed up at the Cadillac store when we were there, that was that's what everyone wanted to look at, was that crazy backlit instrument display. And then Mercedes came out with that on not the Next S, not the 140, but on the 220. And of course it immediately started breaking. So Lexus did a pretty good job with that, and that obviously became a luxury car thing. Let me put my little paper mat down here, so, you know, I spent yesterday cleaning that floor mat. But anyway, here you've got memory seats. You've got, you know, this looks a little bit chintzy, the red, the door lock mechanism, and I guess this raises and lowers the seatbelt height. Your window switches that look very suspiciously Forerunner-y. You got a nice big map pocket there. Great place to put a big revolver. Before I get in, I'll show you. Here's your mirror controls, your folding mirror. You can turn off the park sensors. This is, I don't remember if that's the daytime running lights or vehicle VSC. Probably VSC, the traction control. Maybe not. That's not a good place for it. Yeah, it's over there. I think that's, God, damned if I can't remember anyway. But doesn't matter. Anyway, let's hop in and fire this thing on. And again, this is the key, is this instrument cluster. So watch when I... it's so hard to do these things one-handed. Oh, for fuck's sake, I can't reach it. All right, let's try that with me holding in the other hand, because this is key to look at this instrument cluster. Love the way the needles come to life first. Very, very cool. Then the rest of the display pops in. And again, that was a pretty big deal from Lexus that worked out extremely well. Oh God, okay, so here's the lawyer nag screen. Let's do that. But anyway, you saw the mirrors. Now you got this multi-function wheel. It gives you all the radio controls. Very, very nice. Thank God we have a little bit of air conditioning going. Let me turn that down. I'll turn the fan down, but at least I've got some chilly air coming in. I don't like all the climate screen stuff. I prefer just having controls, but I don't know, people seem to like it, if not me. We've got these and here's more of that family truckster stuff. Look at the vents moving, you know, back and forth like that, like the cheap air conditioner in a Motel 8. People love it, you know, Lexus guys love it. It reminds me a little bit of the key code on the Ford door. Don't you dare besmirch it to a Ford lover, and don't you dare besmirch these things to a Lexus lover, but I think it's silly. I will say that I do think it's miraculous that they still work. More family truckster stuff. You've got dual glove boxes. You know, I mean, I just think that's a little bit, why not one big one or something? I just think that's a bit silly. You got airbags everywhere, front, side, head, all that crap, which is obviously good. Over here you get into your audio. You've got FM, AM. Let's see what we got on the radio right now. Probably crap. Yeah, of course, crap. You got a little information set up right up here with your clock and your temperature and your outside temp. You have your, you know, at least you do have a volume knob. I'll give them credit for that. Underneath that, you've got a 6-disc changer. For the 5-speed automatic, you've got your power and snow settings. You got a great little place to put some fentanyl. This is your rear sunscreen, which I'll leave up. There it is, vehicle stability control. You can turn that on and off. Your headlight washers, and we've got ball breezers down here, which I'm going to turn on. So cool seats, lovely, again, wood trim everywhere. You got an ashtray, which is nice. You've got cup holders, which are nice. Open this up, you got a weird dual pronged center console. There's a 12-volt outlet down there, and that is also a great place for drugs and guns. Here's a self-dimming mirror. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I believe it has self-activating windshield wipers. You've got this crazy little, this was back when everyone was doing these OnStar type things. Mercedes, BMW, of course GM, and Lexus couldn't be left out. I'm sure it doesn't work now. You can also, I can't seem to get it to work. I'm trying to record a voice memo and I get nothing. Nah, so that's annoying. Maybe some Lexus guy can help me out with that. You got a garage door opener and a nice big power sunroof, which has glass and then a shade, all very traditional. And you've got two lovely cocaine mirrors with nice spot there to put your documents, and they're all sort of, I don't know, what do you call that? Oh God, my brain is gone, absolutely gone. Doesn't matter. A very fancy feeling fake material that's all nice, and it's matched with the headliner. So, all right, let's go for a spin. And driving this thing around has illustrated to me that it's a fantastic car. I mean, it feels incredibly smooth, very quiet inside, very peppy, very powerful, nice light steering, good, variable feel to it. I won't say it feels too tight and it's not too loose. It's just absolutely perfect. The seats are super comfortable. Power is fine. I'll hit it after we get past this lawn truck a little bit. The transmission shifts very smooth, and I mean, it's just a pretty flawless car. And I mean, you can tell the amount of effort and design and engineering that went into this thing is unbelievable. I mean, they built what they thought, and probably is, the best sedan that was made at the time, probably from '89 onward. And it's boring, or at least it's boring to me. I mean, yeah, it makes a great driver. It's not going to break. The AC is cold. You got basically all the luxury amenities that you need. But with all their engineering and all of their, efforts and spying on people and sending emissaries and figuring out customer service, they just couldn't give it a soul. And they ended up building cars for people who don't care about cars very much. Now look, I haven't followed Lexus into the modern era, and I know they're doing all this F-Sport crap and the LFA and other stuff to sort of to boost that image, but the Lexuses that I've been a part of, they just don't excite you very much. And even though this is just a fantastic car, no question about it, it just doesn't thrill me. But anyway, there it is. So look, I'm not going to start rambling on anymore. I know people are waiting for that Toronado. It's coming. Robert the German is working on it. It's almost there. I've got other stuff coming on, and we'll get it all done, and then I'll figure out how the hell we're going to do videos from North Carolina. Thank you very much for having a look today. Really, really appreciate it. Hope you're enjoying your cooler weather up north, and I'm going to keep suffering down here, and we will see you with the next one. Take care.